Okay.
And we were just ripping. And I looked down, I was like, holy cow, it's been 3 hours. Because we were just talking about business stuff, and he's a financial advisor. And it's kind of when I first started, so we didn't really have any.
You'll be glad you have that at some point,
Yes.
whether no one else watches it at all.
Yep.
You'll be glad you had that conversation.
100%. I tell people that all the time. I was like, even if nobody else listens to this, well, first off, we'll just get going here because we're already in. First off, I get to sit down with people like you, other people I've interviewed, my dad.
Yeah.
And I just get like a free hour of coaching. So like
Yeah,
for me, it's
that's
kind of gravy. Maybe at some point I'll have to start paying people to come, be willing to do the podcast. But like you said, with my dad, whenever he passes or whatever, or for my kids, like they'll just get to hear that conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like that's super cool, thing that a lot of people have.
Yeah. I lost my dad in 2020. And I tell people whose parents are failing in health, go get a video. Just set one up in the corner.
Yeah.
Or if they're cool with it, just have a video of them talking. You don't hear their voice.
Yeah.
And you don't need always words of wisdom. It's just like, he's just being himself, his mannerisms and stuff. Yeah. So, but through text messages, because it's all saved. So it's not saved in my video or photos, but it was an old text that it pops up and sometimes, I just found this. And it was, them dancing at Christmas or something like that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But having that little voice clip is nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You always think about the things, after you lose people. So it's good to be proactive and think about that stuff.
Yeah, I was telling Lions because his son was down there. I worked with my dad for 3 years in a different industry before I got in this. And you didn't realize at the time, it was pretty cool. I know there were some days and I was like, I don't want to go to lunch with my dad every day, right?
Yeah.
But just having the interactions of seeing him was pretty cool. And they've been selling together for 5 years. So that's a nice relationship.
Yeah, now I get to, my dad's a financial advisor. He owns his own practice inside of that. He's with LPL. So their model is you kind of hire, fire, do all your stuff. You get the back end support. It's not like Charles Schwab where it's more, governed, I guess is maybe a good way to put it. So I get to talk to him about entrepreneurship and business owner stuff. And I called him yesterday. I was like, hey, it was a fun day as a business owner. Like complaints all over here, employees acting strange. And he's like, yeah, that's part of it for sure. And
when I switched from Remax to where we're at with Real, I was explaining the model to my financial planner, who's a friend, but then we talk a lot.
Yeah.
So over 2 years or so, a lot of conversations. He switched from where he was at. He's still with Wells Fargo. But I said, I'm not going. If you went open up, Blue Sky Investments, and you're holding my money, I'm not giving you my money. Yeah. I trust you.
Yeah.
Your health, things happen, right? Yeah. Your security systems, what we back in. So he's
like an individual, like full individual type of. Yeah.
And I don't even know what the name of his little company is. I get his statements or whatever, but it's powered by Wells Fargo. Gotcha. So they got my money. Yeah. They're the ones doing all the compliance and all the security. I was like, cool. I'm cool with that. They end up, instead of making call it 30%, they make 50% of the overall commission and whatnot. So he was like, I got him thinking about where he's at and how much was going out the back door, where he didn't use the services that they were offering at. I don't even know where he was at before. Yeah. Morgan Stanley, I don't know.
Yeah.
But so he gets to run his own business the way he wants to, still has that back end support.
Yeah.
So
cool. Well, we already kind of got started here, but this is the Hoosier Homes podcast. We have special guest today, Jim Wilson. You have been a realtor for how long?
23 years.
23 years.
Yeah. So start my 24th. I started in, I believe, May.
Okay. May of 24 or 25?
2002.
That's math.
Yeah, 2002. Okay. I was in a position. I went to Ball State and a degree in finance, and then went and worked for a company. That boss that was there, I loved him. He left 8 weeks after I got there. And I followed him. I had the job offer before I went back to my senior year. I was actually filling in for someone in the warehouse, and I was pushing a broom all day long because we had nothing to do. The owners were there, which I didn't know who they were. And on that Friday, she said, "Why do you keep pushing a broom?" I said, "Well, I was taught there's nothing to do. You can always push a broom." She said, "You've been sweeping this small little warehouse all day long." She said, "What are your plans after college?" And I said, "I don't know yet." She said, "Well, I'm going to offer you a job right now." So I am taking that job. It was nice because I had a job. Yeah. I also didn't look as hard as maybe I could have looked. Yeah. Life worked out, and it's all for the best. But I had a job.
And what was that industry?
We sold, so before your Menards and Lowe's and all that were on every street corner, we sold power tools and contractor equipment. So if you're building Lucas Oil, you can't keep going to get new drill bits and new drills because our drills will last 7 years, right? Theirs last 5 months because they're using them every day.
Yep.
So we had sales guys, they put their orders in, and then I would go and warehouse, you'd go drive them out to the job site. Now, I'm not, there's still around, it's called Mill Supply. It's at
I think I'm
Pelton Pike and 465.
Yeah, I think I've seen them.
Yeah. So was part of that. Anyhow, that guy left who was a general manager and great guy. Still talk to him. Saw him last weekend. He bought a commercial kitchen equipment contracting company.
Okay.
So very niche, and every large building has them.
Commercial equipment contracting.
Yeah. So kitchen equipment. So schools, hospitals, all the bid jobs. We did a lot of bid jobs. We would only do like Texas Roadhouse and Lofner's cafeterias because they paid their bills. Every bar owner goes under. Yeah. And you had to go, repo the stuff and it's junk and it's not worth it. So we did a lot of schools and hospital work. We did Conseco Fieldhouse, and then we got Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. And we were driving back. I was with the boss. We came back from the bid, win the unveiling when you open bids, and we won. And he said, "Hey, I'm giving you whatever $10,000 raise, company truck. Let's go." And I said, "Hold on a minute. I applied for grad school, information sciences. I haven't heard back yet, so just hold off on giving me money." And you can see the wind,
kind of knocked out of
just knocked with sales. Yeah. So I ended up going back to grad school. He was a great boss. And he said, "Well, you're 90 days away from being invested in 401k. You still need health insurance. I know you don't think you need it because you're 22 or 23, whatever, 24, but you need health insurance." So he said, "Let's keep you on payroll for at least 90 days so you're vested in your 401k. And I ran jobs west part of Ohio into Michigan, Detroit, and then northern Indiana. Looking back, I knew a bunch of college kids that could lift heavy stuff and use them as their as his employees. So
that's a good boss, though. I mean, that's a good to have the foresight of saying, "Hey, like I know you're going to do this. Yeah. Let's just go ahead and do the 90 days." Yeah. That's something you don't get in corporate America. That's a small business owner taking care of.
So it grew from like 13 employees to around 30. I don't know, 10 million to 30 million in sales. So a huge increase. We were very heavy on loans from the bank because schools are closed in the summer. So a lot of our bulk of the work was there over Christmas break. So you needed a line of credit of 4, 5, 6 million. After I came out, so 9/11 happened. There was 2 or 3 things that happened. Arthur Anderson was a consulting company. Now it's Accenture. A lot of consultants. And I already owned a house in Indy. I actually owned about 20 rentals.
Oh, wow.
At the time.
You owned?
Yeah. So
we'll have
to move
that. We'll revisit that here in a minute.
So to move to a different city, I needed, X amount of pay. I lived for free. I had 3 or 4 roommates in the house I owned in Lawrence. So I lived for free. So the right job wasn't there. I had some offers to go to Atlanta and some other places, but the money wasn't there. It all worked out for the best that I stayed here. And then
this was Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do was like teleconferencing. So at the time, you had clients or another office in Japan and other places, right? You had to fly there, do your meetings, and it was expensive. Now with your iPhone, you just Zoom and whatever. I asked my kid last night. So how was I was telling him how to solve a problem, right? Yeah. And the problem is solved by Zoom and your phones. Yeah. And I said, so that I would have been out of a job, right? The whole industry changed. But so I didn't take a job anywhere else. He offered me to come back to work for him full time. So I was his right-hand guy, gave me a nice bump in pay. And I went through and looked at his books because you went from 13 to 30 employees. The gas cards, just everything just starts to explode. Yes. Insurance, health insurance, and just cutting costs because like, cool, go buy another truck. We have more jobs. We got to get going. And so I saved him $500,000 in my first year back. Wow. So it paid me 50. Yeah. I saved $500,000. It was a good hire. Yeah. But I got to run someone's company without being my risk. Yes. Yep. Now I got to be known as the hatchet guy. Yeah. And we didn't let any employees go. Yeah. We needed employees. Yeah. But it was small things like figuring out how to lower health insurance. At the time, now we have, like the Board of Realtors has, you can get insurance through the Board of Realtors. And your trade associations can now do that. 20 some years ago, it was only your office. So if Sally Sue had cancer last year, all of our rates go sky high. Yeah. Now it's spread out amongst everyone. So I had to get creative and a little bit pre-internet-ish on how you would search for things. And I actually met the guy who owns Knowledge Services in Fishers. And it was a grand opening in the new building. So I ended up talking with the CEO, he and his wife, and I said, wait a minute, so what do you guys, I was invited. I was like, so what's your product? Like, what do you guys do? And he said, well, we're kind of third party. A lot of your state employees, the employees are actually employees of Knowledge Services. So when we say, hey, let's get rid of this we need 5 or 6 people cut, the state doesn't have to let them all go. It's on Knowledge Services. It's their contract. It's their employee. And he said, we were called whatever they were called before. I said, I used a company out of Richmond, Indiana. He said, that was us. He said, you had been one of our first clients. Like, how did you find us? And I said, it was a lot of research, but that's all I had to do was just research and save money. So anyhow, that company ended up losing their financing. And I had already owned some rentals. And I called up the number one, and the bank hired me as HR to unwind the company, unwind employees and stuff. And so we weren't paying for unused vacation time. So I went and got my license, knowing I'm not going to get paid for my 2 or 4 weeks that I had. At the time, it was a 2-week course. I went and got my 2-week course. And
your realtor's license.
My realtor's license, yeah. And then the day of my last class, I got a call from the bank going, hey, we're locking the doors, clean your desk out. Mine was already cleaned out. I knew it was coming. I was letting people go, which is really hard to do. It was a good experience to do, but to see the personal side of, and everyone kind of knew what was going on anyhow, so it wasn't out of the blue. But being 24, 25, letting people go that are 50 and 60, it was
that's different.
It was tough. So, but I had contacted the number one agent in the state. His name is Bart Gowker, still selling today. And he was clipping off nearly $1 million by himself in 2002, unlicensed assistant, and then himself. And asked him out to lunch, and he and his wife met. An hour and a half later, he said, thanks, but I don't want to hire you. I don't want to take any time away from what I'm doing because I'm killing it.
Why do I need it?
Why do I need it? He called me a week later and said, all right, if you pass your test, give me a call and we'll talk. So I called him, I passed it. And I saw my test is the next day. It was Friday. That same Friday he called and took my test on Saturday and passed it. And I was working for him on Monday.
What is the sales pitch when you're talking to the number one guy in Indiana?
And I really didn't know
I don't need you. And, is it just, hey, it's kind of, you have nothing to lose.
No, I just had to sell myself. I had to say, here's what I've done. I started in high school, started carpet cleaning business and ran through college. Kind of how I got my first job, just pushing the broom. I just want to be a fly on the wall and listen to what you do. And if I can make half of what you do, successful career. And I don't want to say I always went for the quicker dollar. And this one I said, I'm cool with paying a commission split, being on a team. I want to learn the right way to do it. So I learned a lot of the right way. And I learned some things that I want to do differently than how he did it. He was extremely busy, so he could be a little short with people. But he was moving on to the next deal. And there's agents like that in our world now. And some people get upset. Oh, they didn't want to talk about, they're clipping off 5 a week.
They don't have time to mess around.
They don't want to talk about trim around a back door. Submit it and we'll respond accordingly, however my client wants to respond. Right. So I learned some good things with it. So stayed on his team for like 2.5 years. And then it was time to go. I would sell maybe 30, 35 homes a year. Got 1 or maybe 2 deals from team lead. And that was it. The rest were self-generated. So I thought, man, I'm giving a lot in commission. I think I can do this on my own. So it was a tough day to go in and, quit my job. And he said, no problem. Can you stay in the same, office or cube and watch my business when I'm out of town? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, good luck. You can still ask me questions. We're still, friends in the industry. I watched his business more after I left his team than when I was on his team. So
did he compensate you for that, or was it more of like, hey, I helped you, you helped me, kind of?
No, he would comp it. Yeah, he would comp it. And I always knew if like my MyBor bill came or a bill came, I would ask if he would pay it when I had like 2 closings that day. And then he'd be like, hey, because he didn't know what our deal was. He did, but he didn't know, right? And he would always pay my bill.
That's awesome.
So I'd slide those in on those good days. And then I was solo agent for, let's just call it 10 years. And
that's with what brokerage did you hold?
With Remax. Okay. So I was with Remax for 20.
Okay.
And then current brokerage for 3 with Real Broker. So in 0809, our office merged, a lot of downsizing, a lot of less agents. And we merged with another office and combined. I didn't want to go. Judy reminded me of that like 2 weeks ago. Remember, you didn't even want to come over. And but we did. We had a manager, Sandy. He was great. He was with ERA. He's with an older company that's no longer around. ERA is still around, I think. So it wasn't ERA. Anyhow, an older company. I used to clean their offices at night in high school.
Gotcha.
I was like, man, I know you from somewhere, right? So we started playing the game. Sandy was great. He had a cup of coffee and a joke for you every time he came in. But agents were coming to me with questions on contracts, even though I was just an agent. And so I knew my contracts and how to put things together, keep things together. And Sandy ended up going in for surgery. Judy, the owner, vacations every January for a month. She's always done that. So she asked me if I would cover as manager. And I said, that's fine. She needs someone to sign checks and sign listing agreements. Mm-hmm. Sandy went in for surgery. He had cancer everywhere. So he did not come back. She wanted me to manage the office. And I said, Judy, you know my numbers and I know your numbers now as the owner. Mm-hmm. The pay's just not there. And I still want to sell. But I enjoyed, instead of watching for my names on top of the list, I was watching for all of our agents' names and how many people can get in the top 50, 100, whatever the list would be. So I said, but I'll hold on as manager till you figure out what you need to do. Because I was enjoying it. And I got a little extra pay. And so I went to her, I don't know, 2 months later and said, how about I just buy you out? So we got creative on a buyout. Yeah. And I had one downstroke of money and I knew the numbers. So I knew I could pay for it from the profits of the company. So we did that. We both co-owned.
She was how old when she did that?
She just turned 70. So she was probably like 60.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm guessing. I think she just turned 70. So
it's fairly youngish for, selling your business and pulling out, stepping back.
Yeah. So getting creative on how you buy something versus saying, here's a big chunk of change. With that though, when you do that, sometimes people leave. Yeah. And some people like me and some people love Judy. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure some people didn't like me, but they like Judy. Yeah. So, but between the two, I always say people like their managers, not always the owner, but most people like their managers. Mm-hmm. That's why they're there for the day-to-day questions. But, so ended up buying her out. And then, I had franchise agreements that are 5 years, renewals. And I knew that this NAR lawsuit was on its way. So it's been 3.5 years. So 4.5 or 5 years ago, this has already been brewing for that long. Yeah. And I thought, am I on the hook for millions? Yeah. No one could answer a question. It was just brewing.
Because Remax was round one, yeah? Like of the lawsuit.
They were round one. Iteration. I think they settled for like $55 million. Oh, wow. Which at first I was like, man, that's a big number. Ended up being a fairly small number in the grand scheme of things. Looked at going to different brokerages. And then I ended up finding Real Broker after I was almost down the road with one company. It was a similar model. And talked to the CEO 4 or 5 times and their COO. And we ended up opening up the state. And that was a huge risk. That was a lot of sleepless nights. But I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I liked the people where I was at. Yeah. But there was no vision. Yeah. I talked to the CEO of Remax at the time. And are you working on an app where I can connect with an agent? I can get a referral in. I can buy some swag or some merch. Mm-hmm. See my transactions. All my stuff stored there. Yeah. And their answer was, that's the unicorn everyone's trying to get to. And I was like, you just told me you're not even trying. Yeah. And you have 100 and some thousand agents. Yeah. Real had 1,500 at the time. And I was like, they're already trying to build this thing. Yeah. And I had version 1 already in my hand. And Drew Dial was off camera. And I kind of showed my screen like, it's already there. So at that point, the conversation was over. You weren't even trying. That CEO is now gone. And the next CEO is already gone from there. So again, good company. And they filled a void that was needed at the time. And they grew because it was good old boys in 1979, 80s, early 80s. And no one hired women as real estate agents. Mm-hmm. So there was all these agents, women that wanted to be agents, and no one hired them. Mm-hmm. So Remax came in and hired them all. Yeah. So their growth was exponentially exploded. Huge. Yeah. Yeah. And now it's probably 52% female, 48% male.
More female agents now.
There is.
Than there's male.
Yeah. Yep. So, and the market wanted that. They wanted that. So anyhow, now we came over to Real, and now I'm a manager. I had 1 year non-compete. And now I kind of miss getting the phone calls at all times of the day. But it's nice to have the knowledge in your head and share it. So now I'm in year 23, 24. What drives me? I like sales. I would do sales every day. Yeah. And I still sell a decent amount. But I do like when I get questions from agents. Yeah. And I like the agents that are, if they show up, I show up. Yeah. If it's not important to you, then it's not important to me. I have many other things in my life I can go do. Yeah. I'm not going to say, come to a meeting every 2 days and 2 hours, and we're going to, if you want the knowledge, then come ask me, and it won't be 2 hours, it'll be 3. you'd be like, I got to go.
Yeah.
So if someone's willing to put forth that effort, then just like Bart gave me a chance back then, and I still do a lot of the same things that I did in 2002.
Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of experience. That's a lot of things that you've done over 23 years. I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with this first. Well, first I want to revisit the fact that you were a CFO for what was the revenue stream of that company when you were the quote unquote CFO, running the slashing? It's got to be.
I think we were like 35 million, 40 million came in.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you were 25?
Probably 25. Yeah.
That's a big responsibility and trust from that person to put in you as a 25-year-old to run not run, but, for all intents and purposes, you're the CFO of a $35 million company.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I was a person that would work 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
But I had 5 or 6 buddies from college I got hired, whether they were doing like CAD work drawings. Some didn't know what they were going to do, and they were in the warehouse loading a truck, but it was filling a gap. Some were school teachers waiting to start their first job. And we also talk about the good old days, right? We were 20s and we went out and, it's funny when you get the contract for the Pacers arena, right? Now you have eight season tickets. Every contractor, every contractor had season tickets, once they won the bid.
Yeah.
And it was like, crap, there's a game tonight. It's 6:00. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
Like, I got 3 buddies that are still single. Like, meet me downtown.
Yeah.
And I would drive down with the owner, and he was sitting in his box seats, and then we had ours. And I went to probably a third of the games the first couple of years. So it was fun. It was something new and exciting. The Pacers were good in that era.
That would have been, who would have been Pacers at that time?
Rick Smits.
Okay,
Reggie is there forever, but
Rick Smits, his son was in high school with me.
Oh, was he?
So Rick would come to our basketball practices, 7'3" or whatever, and I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna be in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't need to do NBA drills.
Yeah.
I'm just here to have fun.
So Jerry Cucci in our office, he had a place in Florida and had a listing in Zionsville, and he was like, Jim, I'm coming back up. There's someone who wants to see the house. I got to show it.
Yeah.
It was someone else's buyer, but he's well, I need to be there. And I was like, I can go do this for you. Just stay in Florida, just for one showing, right? He said, well, the requirement is all door openings have to be at least 8 feet tall and no ceilings less than 10.
Rick's place.
And I'd been to Jerry's listing before. Yeah. And I said, well, that's your Zionsville listing. I said, just stay in Florida. So he said, okay, I'll stay in Florida if you got it. So I went and met. I was like, it's got to be a basketball player.
Sure.
Football players usually aren't that tall.
Yeah.
And ended up being Rick.
Yep.
So he brought his dog, his German Shepherd dog, and he drives a Sprinter van.
Yep.
And, it's kind of like me and my wife, probably, like 5'2", like huge difference. So she went inside.
Short,
he does a lot with motorcycles. So if you follow him online and stuff, does a lot. He wanted to build some garages.
Yep.
He ended up passing on the property with it. But Mike Pence ended up buying the property.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, that's the property he bought.
I actually did not know that Rick Smits passed. I didn't know that.
No, he didn't buy the house.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I was like, wow, I just dropped a bomb on me.
He passed on the house.
He passed on the house. Gotcha.
I think he still lives in India or Zionsville area.
Well, I know Derek his son lives in Arizona now. So I don't know if they went with him or not. But I've been, the one that they did buy.
Super nice guy.
Yeah, he's very nice. He drove us I remember one time he drove us to a basketball game, and we were in like his F-150, and he's sitting in basically the back seat, and I'm sitting in the front seat, whatever, and he just veered that thing off the road, blew through a cornfield, and he's like, man, the only reason I can do that is because I own this field. I was like, I don't even know if that's true or not.
We'll roll with it.
But we'll go with it. He was super fun because they did dirt biking. Yeah. He walked me through their shed and everything. They've got all the antique bikes and all that stuff. But I remember walking through his house and the island hit me in the eyes because everything's so tall. It's crazy. But I mean that's 25 years old running a $35 million company is no joke.
Yeah.
And then you said that you had 20 rentals already going into that.
Yeah.
So how did you get the start in that? Also, when did you get married in all this timeline? How old were you?
Age 30.
Okay.
Right before age 30. So a good buddy of mine, he was a school teacher. Now he's assistant superintendent in Lawrence schools. So he's making school teacher money. I'm making, basically school teacher money.
Yeah.
And he was going to buy a house. I was going to buy a house 6 months out of college. And I said, hey, let's just go in together and buy 4-bedroom. We'll have our friends rent from us. So we bought a house in Lawrence. And the agent I used, she actually, when I bought the company, she ended up working for me.
That's funny.
Yeah, she sent me my contract like 2 years ago. She retired. Yeah. It was like a 3-page purchase agreement. Now we're up to like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And so me and my buddy went to Broad Ripple the night before with everyone, and came back to the apartment. And we're getting a knock on the door at 9 in the morning on Saturday. And we'd stayed out really late. And we finally get up, and I was like, shoot, we have some home showings today. We got to go look at some homes. So we hop in our car and we go to the first one, and we're pretty hungover.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's cool. We'll buy it. And she was like, no, come on, guys, look look around. It's like, we just wanted a 4-bedroom with a finished basement.
Sure.
Somewhere in Lawrence.
Yeah.
Worked for us. Went to the next one. We're like, sounds good.
We'll buy this one.
We just wanted to get back home.
Yeah.
She's like, guys, get serious.
Yeah.
And I said, let's just take us to the one you want us to buy.
Yeah.
So we went to 7405 Blue Creek South Drive, and we're like, cool, we'll take it. It was $8,000 more than the other ones. And they were like, oh my gosh, it's more expensive.
Yeah.
$40 more. Interest rates were at 8.25.
Okay.
So it's the same kind of market we had-ish.
Yeah.
Before we closed, we got a 7.75, 7.75. And it was like we won the lottery.
And that was what year?
98. So when
that's an interesting little tidbit for everyone who always cries about interest rates being so high.
We celebrated that night because we got a low interest rate.
Yep.
It wasn't 8, it was something in 7s.
Yes.
We thought we just won the lottery.
Yeah.
So the way she treated us throughout the transaction was great. Garage door opener didn't work at closing or something. I don't know. She went and bought a garage door opener for us and had it installed.
Wow, she big time.
Yeah. So
That's
she blew $200 on us, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you got to do is treat your people right. Because I still remember 1998 that someone bought me a garage door opener
for sure
that had failed. But I tracked those homes. She had about 6 set up for us. Ours did the best out of all 6. So I tracked it for about 10 years, and ours did the best. So she had the knowledge in her head of I know it's a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, but it's worth
but this neighborhood will do better than the more budget friendly where we're at. We looked at some in Broad Ripple, and we should have pulled the trigger on one. There's now Monon Row condos, bought all that land.
Gotcha.
And it would have been a good sell.
Just sell out, yeah.
We would have saved money in cab fare, Uber fare over the years. But it worked out well. So we had a lot of friends. We had about 15 friends rent from us throughout the years. It was great. But back to the rentals. My buddy's dad owned a couple, 3 or 4 with one of his partners. And they sold us 2 on land contract at 306 North Chester Avenue. So Sherman, Emerson.
Yeah.
They were worth the same dollar amount for about 20 years up until 2000 or 2020. And then they raised in prices.
Yep.
So land contracts. What I learned is, and then that boss that I worked for, he sold me 1.
Okay.
No, he sold me 3.
Okay.
And one of his buddies, because you hang around the same type of people.
Yep.
He owned Scott Brody. He owned Brody Campbell. It's a brick company, bricklaying company, a masonry. They do large projects. He had a rental and he was done with it.
Yeah.
So
tire landlord.
I bought him for $5,000 down, land contract. Eventually flipped him.
So you were doing seller financing or creative financing before it was. I mean, it's always been around. Yeah. But now it's every agent calls you and it's like, hey, can I buy this creative finance? You're like, no, just buy it.
Just buy it. Yeah. So I realized either you love your property or you hate it and you want to get rid of it. You don't want to be a property owner. So try to find those people. And then
did those people own it outright that you were doing land contracts on? Okay. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't taking over their mortgage or anything.
Yep. So then in a period there, I went back to grad school, had them all rented. I came back and
that was when you went to grad school, it was 20 at that point.
Yeah. And seven were vacant. Okay. And I was like, yeah, be kidding me. It's Christmas. How are these already vacant? I went back to one, and the partner, he was in Broad Ripple. I was home writing a paper or something. I was like, wait a minute. That house is empty. Is the heat on? Did we turn? I drive down there at Washington and Sherman at 11:30 at night, and there's a 1.5 feet of ice in the basement.
Yeah.
So I said,
lesson there.
Here you go, contract owner. Here's your house back.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I don't want it back. And I was like, well, it's a land contract. You keep my money, and here's your house back. I should have just turned it into insurance and been fine.
So in the contract, was there writing saying that you could just turn it back whenever?
Yeah, I said I'm just defaulting on my contract, so you can take it back.
You foreclose on it.
The other side was rented. It was just one side of the two. It was just that one property. So basically, we can go to foreclosure if you want, or just here's the keys and it's yours. You made your $10,000. Now we had cash flowed it. Those properties cash flowed great.
So when you bought it, they didn't deed it to you. It was just strictly.
No, it was still in
did you file that with the county, or was it just a handshake deal?
Just handshake.
Okay.
Yeah, we had our contract, but it was just a handshake deal.
Did you sell any of those when you had the handshake deal? Like you sold it to the open market and made money?
Yeah.
And it all worked out like,
Yeah. Eventually, once I paid off that land contract, we transferred deed.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we transferred deed. So I think at one point, I forget the numbers. I had $2 million out in mortgages at age 24, 25. And my income was $42,000. So people took risk on me, right?
That's interesting.
And a lot of them I had been painting and renting them out for the owners already, right? So it was an easy, like, hey, if I give you 15 grand, because I was getting cash flow from the other ones. I had some success and I had some failures, right? So in the grand scheme of things, I'm not sitting on 20 properties worth, 400 grand right now, but it taught me a lot of lessons. So when I talk to my clients, when they say, oh, I want to buy a rental. Okay. Do you want, again, Washington and Sherman, collect rents every week and hear about their 9th grandma that's passed away this month, right? Or do you want Hamilton proper and Bridgewater at $4,500 a month?
Yeah.
Right. Those, they tend to pay. Lily's paying, whoever's paying. But when they're vacant for 3 months, you got a large nut to cover. So you want townhomes? Do you want, are you handy? Are you not handy? Are you paying everything out? Management company? There's a lot of questions go into, I want a rental. My daughter's 18 in high school. She wants to buy a rental. So we're thinking, where does she want to live at in 5 years? And then buy it now, hopefully refinance in the next year or two when the market rates get better. And then she'll have a rental already in place. And there's some talk about limiting rentals in Fishers now, and which I'm very vocal against it because people lose their jobs. I got to take care of mom or dad in Vermont for a year, right? I'm not going to leave my place vacant. So you have to have some options, I think, for homeowners to do what they want to do with their property. And it's the out-of-state investors that they don't like. Well, everyone forgot the out-of-state investors got us out of a mess in 2010 through 2015. The homes that went down to 100 grand are now 300 because they kept outbidding each other. So short-term memory on problems that happen. And then once you move away, you may not move back to that same city. So the only rule I like on that, not to get too sidetracked, would be you have to live in the house for 1 year. If I had to pick a rule, like we had to put something in place, that would stop every large investor. They're not going to hold a property for a year. But I didn't do this by telling anyone who's younger than me. If you don't have to sell your house, don't sell your house. Keep it as a rental. Go ahead and pull some cash out to get the down payment. But you're going to wish you had those properties over the years. Because things change.
For sure. Wow. What would you say? So I'm 28. You were 25, had 20 doors. Right now we manage about 170 properties.
Okay.
I know you know all this, but for the listeners, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of problems day in, day out. Because no one was managing for you, right? You're just self-managing.
Self-managing.
Well, go ahead.
Yes and no. I had some properties in Muncie at Ball State's campus. So we had 3 properties in Muncie, and I would go up because they all think I got the open schedule, right? So I had a couple partners. You have the open schedule, go, right? So by default, I have to go. And turning them over, like a hell week, right? Renters are out, and you got to get them there by the fall renters to come in. And I would try to get my renters like February, March for the next school year. That's the C and D students who might come back. Your A and B students in October are already going for next year. Okay? So I was kind of had the student who wasn't sure if they're going to be back or not. And I finally got a rental management company. I made more money even though I paid the rental fee.
Gotcha.
Because I would take the first phone, like I don't want to drive up here again. It's a pain in the ass.
And then just end it.
And I would take the first person. And they were always half hour late. So hour up, hour back, half hour there with them, and they're half hour late. It's 3 hours every time. So I hired a management company. And then we had some flooding issues that happened up there. They built a new dorm, and it changed the flow of all the water in the city of Muncie, or campus. And it had a pretty strong homeowners association up there. And they all said, we've never seen this before. So we did the right thing, put egress windows in the basements. And the water would flow in front of the house, fill up the yard, fill up the egress window like a fish bowl, and eventually push in. So the basement would fill up in like 4 minutes with water. And there was 2 bedrooms down there, and we had 2 egress windows. And finally, my property manager said, I can't rent this out anymore. There's too much liability. I said, I don't blame you. I don't want it either. I wouldn't want my kid down there. And we did it all for all the right reasons. And the flow of the water would just filthy.
And there's nothing you could do
against
the dorms and the school or anything?
No. Because it's only industry in Muncie is the university. So we sold them. and we have to disclose everything and over disclose as an agent. And he said, I said, I want to sell them. He said, I may have someone for it. So in Muncie, you don't close in the same room. It's a long process, but it's different rooms. And LLC bought the property from us. And on my seller's disclosure, I put water in basement, 7 feet of water in basement, see property manager for all, because they also did a repairs. See property manager / buyer's agent for list of all repairs, knowing I now pushed it back on you, who's representing the buyer.
Yeah.
It was his cousin. I was selling his cousin's homes down here in Indy. They never told me it was his cousin.
Oh, wow.
Because he signed it through LLC, and I couldn't read the signature.
Yeah.
And so he ended up buying it from us. He still owns them. I don't think they rent out the basements anymore, or they switched. They did something different. Yeah. They figured out the water. But it was. But I also knew when to cut a property too.
Yeah.
So once I gave back, I had 3 partners on those. If they were paid off, the most I'm looking at is, I don't know, 70,000, 80,000 upside to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of risk with someone in the basement at 3 a.m. after the bar and the water.
Yep.
I didn't. I knew it was raining up there. I would be awake all night. So either you want to manage property and own property, or you don't.
Yeah.
I know I would like to buy property in like Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, and do Airbnb. We got some friends that did that model or doing that model, and do pretty well at it. The numbers got a little tighter because the values have gone up.
Yeah.
But if we want a second place, get it now, get it paid off in 7-8 years, and then we'll have a place to use as a family. Yeah.
The only way I will ever do Airbnb again, because we had 3, is if it's in a place where I would want to go vacation, where it's like if I wanted a second home, like Tiffany, my family in California, her family in California, if we just bought a place where they're at, so when we go visit, we just have a place to stay. Yeah. And if it breaks even the whole year, it's like, cool. Yeah. It's going to appreciate, But Airbnbs are not fun to manage. But I mean, what would you say to, the investor who's going, risk heavy, leveraging hard, 80-20 loans, 75-25 loans, creative financing? You obviously went through 2008. You went through the rebuild of that. You had 20 properties. And what would you say as far as like risk reward on going hot and heavy on rentals? Because from my point of view, I've swung the pendulum the complete opposite side, where I was like, I want to be risk heavy, want to go hard, I want to have debt, use debt, leverage. And now I'm like, I just want like 10 paid off properties in Hamilton County. Because worst case scenario, they all go vacant. They're all empty. I sell one of them. I make $300,000. I can use $300,000 to pay the bills for a long time. Yeah. That's worst case scenario. Yeah. That's never going to happen in Hamilton County, where they're all vacant. They all have problems. They all have that. So like, that's where I'm
You could always
now.
rent it out for $2,000 on a 3,000 month rent. And figure out the $1,000 month.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, where I think it has to do with the age too. And then as they have kids and you got other things in your mind. It's funny, when second kid was coming, I sold a bunch of real estate. Yeah. I was kind of nesting in my own mind of like, oh, I got another mouth to feed. Yeah. And my wife saw it and other people saw it. Like, usually it's the wife who's, getting things prepped at the home and, the bed and all that stuff. And I was the one who was doing all that, on our second child. But, I like long-term appreciation. Yep. The Washington and Shermans and the Chesters and, those were cash flow. That was great. We went to Vegas a lot. We bought boats. We had a lot of fun in our 20s. We had nothing to show for it at the end because we used the cash flow on it. Yeah. Looking back, should we have, and we would always overpay on a mortgage. Not so much on a land contract, but if we had a traditional mortgage, I always overpay on those. And the last 8 years, before mortgages were paid off, if I collected $1,500, I paid $1,500 and didn't use any cash flow. And if I had a repair, I just paid out of pocket. Yeah. But it really accelerated getting those paid off. I'm the type, for my, 47th birthday, I paid off a house. I owed them maybe $5,000 on it. And it's birthday or Christmas, both it's same week, right? Yeah. And they're like, "What'd you do?" I was like, I just paid off a house. Yeah. It was a huge check box of like, I paid that thing off. Yeah. I bought it as a HUD home. And at that time, what was it? You could bid up until Wednesday night at midnight or Thursday night at midnight. And they opened them all up, and they're like noon on Friday. Yeah. They're all opened. And you saw everyone else's bid, which they stopped doing that. Yeah. And I won. It was like, oh, pit in your stomach, like, did I just buy a house? We went to the Pacer game, came back, and I went to my office to put the offer in at like 11 o'clock, 11:30, and we ended up winning it. It was a great move.
You bought that for how much?
85, 555.
Okay.
It's probably
How long ago?
260. 20 years.
20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had sold my house with my buddy Grant because I had a ring in my pocket and I knew I was going to get engaged. So I could buy it as owner occupied because I had sold that house to him.
Yep.
And then did that as owner occupied. And I actually never moved in. Life changed and I got engaged and I didn't move in. It's been rented.
Funny how they don't care after you get the loan. They're like, as long as you pay, we don't really care what.
It's not been vacant for 1 month in 20 years.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Not 1 month. It's all been referral. Here's our thing. I don't raise my rent on tenants.
Yeah.
I did 3 years ago because of our tax caps being doubled.
Yep.
And the house in Lawrence, the new school referendums, and it just got pushed high.
Yeah.
And I said, I have to raise it $100, right?
Yeah.
But my grandparents moved here from Michigan, and I don't even know. It's probably 1986 or something. Before they bought a house, they owned some cottages up on a lake and would rent those out as a working retirement. But I remember Washington Court Apartments, and it's a Greenfield address, but that owner didn't raise the rents. So he had probably 80 units, brick, U-shaped buildings. And one guy used his rent was $150, $180. He used it as a storage unit.
Yeah.
Because he had been locked in for so long, but they never raised the rent. So that's stuck with me for years. Yeah. And I have had tenants for 13, 17 years, 5 years, 8 years, like long term.
Yeah.
Where I'm not painting, I'm not. They may
repairs,
paint, but they don't have to do repairs. And some
build a relationship with them, and they respect it both ways.
We invited some to our wedding. Servilla, she would smoke, and her ash would be that long.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for it to drop. She was from Alabama, and I always collected rent around lunchtime.
In person?
Yeah, because she had a pan full of oil in the kitchen ready for the next fish to go in or something. And Servilla would, after an hour conversation, do you want lunch? Yeah, I'll take lunch. Yeah. It was always the best food. Great conversation. Yeah. She passed away. Big Willie was still there. Big Willie. His hands were like this huge. He was like the guy from Green Mile, the big dude.
Yeah.
I forget his name. Which that guy's actually like 5'5". He's a short little guy, but he stood on a box in the movie.
Gotcha.
But big guy. But he boxed against Muhammad Ali. There's pictures of him in the house. Just a gentle giant. Yeah. And he ended up passing away. He moved to Alabama finally. He inherited some land and moved down and died of a heart attack about a year later. Wow. But he was a great guy. He had a heart attack, whatever year. I had already owned it for maybe 7, 8, 9 years. And he said, I'm going to be late on rent. And I said, well, I assume so. You just had a heart attack. And he said, well, I'll do some small engine repair. He could fix anything. Yeah. And it was actually in Rocky Ripple down by Butler. And he'd fish the river there and bring fish back. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. Let's just give you 3 months off and no rent. Get your heart back in shape. Yeah. He said, well, I owe you money. And I said, I inherited him as a renter. Yeah. You've been here for like 20 years. Yeah. You deserve 3 months off. Yeah. It's okay. Just get healed. He never left. He had a lot of crap in there too. Yeah. So we're thinking this is going to take us 2 months to get everything out of this property. Yeah. But he was there for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 more years after that. So someone has a hardship that happens. Yeah. We're all humans. Yeah. And just give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. And that's, and that's the thing that I would probably say I struggle with from outside investors, out of state investors. And we kind of talked about it a little bit, but 95% of the time it's just a number. It's an address with a rent number attached. And it's like, if we bump this $20, we bump it $15, my ROI goes up, my cash on cash goes up. I'm going to make more. I'm going to have a better life. And, they're not thinking about the other side of it. And as a property manager, I'm pretty much everybody's enemy. Everybody, if they're mad, they're coming to me. Yeah. If the owner's mad because he didn't make enough, they're coming to me. If the tenant's mad because the sink broke or whatever happened, they're coming to me. Yeah. Their rent, if I'm calling them because their rent's not paid, they're mad at me. Like, very little are we the guy where people are like, hey, I love hanging out with you, and it's fine. Yeah. But the local owners, that's what I want to be like. We have a house in Noblesville, and they were going through a lot of stuff, and we sent them pizza and gave them some grace on rent, and they haven't even been there that long. Yeah. But just being able to see, the person behind the numbers, and obviously you might have been in a position where the 3 months wouldn't have hurt. It wasn't that big of a deal. But that also goes back to when you're talking to investors, or at least when I talk to investors, I'm like, if this is your first property and you can't carry the mortgage for like 6 months, you should not be buying a property.
Agreed.
Like, you need to have some savings to be able to pay for stuff. One, if it's vacant. Two, if the roof goes out. Three, if, whatever. And if you're only going to cash flow, $50, $100 because you're just wanting to get in the game.
Yeah.
And you can't carry the mortgage, like, it's really not a great position to be in. It's real estate has become so big and bigger pockets, and it's national. Mm-hmm. It's not national, it's worldwide. Yeah. People invest. There's a guy from Israel who was trying to buy flips here in Indiana. He ended up not doing anything. But like, there's people from all over the world who are investing in Indiana specifically. Yeah. And it's just numbers, and I feel like the renter pool is feeling that, the tenant pool is feeling that, and there's just like this harsh relationship between the two, which is not fun as the middleman all the time. But
when we were forgiving some of the rents, I mean, we were both making under 6 figures, so it wasn't like we were flush with cash. Yeah. It was the right thing to do, and other people owed money throughout the years. And what you find is once they get $2,000-$3,000 behind, they're never gonna have that. For some of those, they're never gonna have $3,000 in their bank account ever. Yeah. Like, it's not gonna happen. I had some people moving; they needed help. So I asked the renters, "I'll wipe off $500 if you come help us load a truck."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. So my people are super happy. Yeah. The tenants got a little bit of debt off of them because you have this relationship. It's also hard, like if you rent to family or people Yeah. Because I'd rather just have them. I'd rather just wipe their debt clean because you have this relationship of like, well, you went to Disney with the kids. I haven't taken my kids because right, but you went and you owe me money. So I don't like renting to family. I had someone who didn't pay the last water bill, and I got perfect credit. I was going to collections. And I stopped by the house. I was like, what the hell is this? My wife's friend that her senior year stayed with for like 6 months because her parents moved to Ohio or something. She stayed with her friends. Mom was in charge of. No, she had a really good job at the water company. I called her and said, I have like an 810 credit score. Yeah. Like, this can't hit. Yeah. She's like, give me a minute. I can't promise. She called the head of collections, whatever, and they got it pulled back and didn't go to collections. So it didn't hit my credit report.
Because you passed.
Sorry, it was in my name.
Yeah, you passed.
It was all in my name. Yeah. And the family member didn't think about the last bill. Yeah. It had been like 90 days. Yeah. And Ramley went over there and saw an envelope there. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. Over, $85. Yeah. On that. So we just extended someone too. So I know times are tough for a lot of people, but he's been a great tenant. He asked if he could do some repairs in the house. And I said, well, it doesn't get me more rent. Like, you're already here. You wanted to open up a wall to a pass-through wall, right? And so I said, no, but the other things you can do. So he had no damage deposit due because it needed some work. I said, you do the stuff and you don't owe me a damage deposit. And you can move in for like a month and a half with no rent. Yeah. Helped him out. So I go to finally meet him because I hadn't met him yet. And he's got 15 DeWalt tools in his garage all lined up with chargers. And I was like, you are legit. Yeah. And so I go inside and like, something looks different about the house. Finally, he was like, I did the pass-through window that you didn't want done. It was perfect. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'll pay you for the materials. I'm not going to pay you for your time because I said not to, right? It doesn't really bring me more money. But we just renewed him, and I know he's a little tighter on funds right now. So I said, we have to raise it $100 because it's a TIF district down there for the sewers that went in Rocky Ripple.
Gotcha. Special assessment type
thing. Yeah. So it's going to be there for a while, which I'm totally fine with. I said, I'm not making more money on this. Marion County's making more, but I'm not making any more. And his lease is up end this month. So February 1, new lease should start. But I said, let's start your new lease July 1. Keep you on the same rent until June 30th. So that gives you a little more time to ramp up because you didn't know what I was going to hit you with. And so it's $100 more. And but I said, we'll do a 3-year contract after that. Now, the guys that sold me their properties don't want their properties. Are they, so me and the guy that owned this together, we're both like, I don't want to find a renter. I don't go down there and clean it up. Yeah. I don't want to manage anything. Yeah. I go down there once a year for that property. Let's just give them a deal. Yeah. And see what happens with Rocky Ripple now that they're going to be out of there and whatnot. So sometimes you just want to take the easiest route with it.
For sure.
And others who are, trying to get every drop out of that washcloth with you going, I need an extra $15 a month, puts the property manager in a little bit tougher situation.
Yeah.
And then when it's vacant for 2 months because you can't get it rented out, they're like, can we go back and get the old rent?
Yeah.
Right? Because now they're going to lose $1,800 a month or $3,600 behind. That takes a long time to make up.
Yeah. Especially when you're not cash flowing.
Yeah. It's the unused hotel room. Like you can't go rent last night's hotel room again.
Yeah.
Right. So, on investors, I would say define what you want. So do you want cash flow or do you want long-term appreciation?
Yep.
And then I go back and forth on, do you just buy it in cash and you have one, or do you buy 2 or 3 and finance it out?
Yep.
It's a math problem and a risk type of thing.
And what your end goal is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always said, I like to have 10 paid off by the time I retire. And then I think I don't want to manage. I want to be in Florida half the year. Now I got to manage a property.
Yeah.
Do the kids manage it? Do I hire a property manager? Do I just sell them all and take the big pile of money and go do something else? Yeah. So then there's also passive investing. So I bought into some apartment buildings. So there's a couple larger companies, largers in town. And I got approached by someone that I bought a house with a client. He wanted to buy, and then he got cold feet 2 days before closing. I said, dude, this is a good deal. And then the bank turned off the power the day before closing. So now the pipes are froze. And he was totally freaking out. I said, dude, you got to do this. So I said, I'll buy it with you. Let's just treat it as a rental. You happen to be one of the renters. So we did if you buy with someone else, do a buy-sell agreement. There's 2 parts to this, but do a buy-sell agreement. So if it was just him, I would pay $200 a month towards a mortgage. If he had one roommate, I would pay $100. And if it was all 3 rooms were full, him and 2 more, I didn't pay anything towards a mortgage. But I would apply $100 a month towards improvements. So we built a deck out back and did some other things. It was on 44th Street and College. And the person who bought it from us down the road, it was time to sell. Once or twice he wanted to sell because he fell in love. And I was like, well, it's cool, but I can buy it, but here's our buy-sell agreement. Well, that's not fair. I was like, it was fair on day one. Right. I'm sorry you fell in love.
That's why we set the terms.
And you want to get out of this thing in 30 days. But so it ended up working out that we ended up keeping the property a little bit longer and sold it to a guy. So Ivan bought it. And then Ivan contacted me about apartment buildings and accredited investor type of stuff. And I said, if you were some guy in Mississippi, I'm not giving you my money, right? Because it's not secured. Like, there's no way. But I'll give you X amount after like 5 phone calls. Because if you screw me over, online, I will, on social, you're dead, right?
Yeah, you're going.
I will go after you. I'm everyone's friend till you cross the line. Then it's like, okay, now you're not. And so bought the first property with them, or first installment with them, and I've put a few more installments in. And we're probably year 5 or 6 on that one. So I get a check or, deposit every month in my account to, 2.5x of original amount. This one, I'm thinking will be at 4 to 4.3x because the financing was so good. And they've actually returned some money to us already because they're well overfunded. And I got into another one that they bought in Carmel, and I sent them this amount. They returned half of it, and they said we have so much interest in the property that we want to give as many of our investors because they all know Carmel. And so that one should be closing up probably this year. And then I bought into Fund 4. So I wanted to stack them. So as one closes out, I can either take some money off or keep doing it. But I thought, well, if I can put X amount in, it goes to 2.5X over 5 years and 2.5. All of a sudden, 500,000 turns into 3 million. Without me doing anything. And right now we got a flip going on downtown in what's it called? Drawing a blank. We're waiting 3 months for our permits from Marion County. So I've kind of
permits are
blocked it out of my head that we own that property.
I went through that a couple times.
Right. So we're burning through. All we do is buy the house and a little bit of money out. So I haven't bought cabinets or any supplies yet. So my burns, $650 a week just by holding costs. Now that money really wasn't making me money anywhere else. So it's really not that bad. But if I had bought $300,000 of cabinets and had paid my plumbers and electricians and all that, it's down in Woodruff. Place, right? So on Center Drive, so it's 6,000 square foot place. It's gonna be a pretty good project. But I realized I don't think I want to do that anymore. I should just dump my money into more money in the apartments. And not thought about it because it's been a little bit stressful on some things.
Flips are for sure not like passive in any sense of the word. Even if you've got a contractor, you've got a project manager, you've got the people in place. It is It is a lot of work.
So I've been approached by my one contractor because he wants to buy rentals.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the downstroke. And I think I'm going to get creative on that one too, to say, I'll buy it and then we'll split profits. And then, but your labor's free. Right. So, and we'll figure out how to work that out.
Yeah.
But if I have other rentals, he's now my property manager for those.
Gotcha.
So I can leverage that relationship to say, all right, you don't have that retirement set up, but within 5 or 6 years, maybe you have 800,000 on cruise control. About 5 or 6 more years that you wouldn't have had, but you got to run and do some stuff for me here and there, and use some of my funds. And my kids make fun of me that I don't do anything. I was like, you know how many homes I've painted? Like at least 150. You know, I used to have all the tools, and then my tools broke or they weren't. I just would hire it out. So for one job, it's not worth me going to buy a tile saw. To go do it. So I'd rather just swap some stuff out.
Do the syndications run on like 5-year clips?
Yeah, that's their estimated. Yeah.
So they refi and pay you out, or they just sell?
They'll sell.
Yeah.
So it depends a little bit on the market.
Yeah.
And so I get paid a 7% annual return. There's another one town that pays 8%, but on my flip, I get investors get 75%, and the house gets 25, right? And then the other one they pay 8%, but the house gets 30%. I only get 70 on the flip side. So either a little bit more, and they have some that they'll pay 10% annual. So part of me is like, well, at a certain age, like, do I just give them $1 million, right? And collect 100,000 a year with no upside besides my annual or my monthly dividends or my monthly check that comes in? It'd be a sliver, right? Your dad's an investment buckets, right? It's all not in there because I can't call it due. And it could go under. The reason I like investing in it is the apartments building is going to be there and the land's going to be there. So it's at least worth something. Versus, buying some XRP and some other things, which I'm not opposed to. I own a little bit of some crypto stuff, very small amounts, just so I can track it, just to know how the world works.
That is my one hang up with syndications, is that your money's froze. You have no control over when it liquidates and you can't pull it out. I know there's a big investor in Vegas. He does flips and stuff, and he was talking about using Bitcoin or blockchain title kind of stuff, where basically you buy in with crypto into the syndicated fund, and then you can kind of sell out to somebody else at any point. So instead of it being locked up for 5 years, it allows people to kind of come in interchangeably. And then as the price of the crypto goes up, the investment also lifts. So it's kind of like a win-win for everybody. So I don't know if that'll ever happen. The crypto space is shaky at best. It's up and down and all around. But so how many rentals do you own now?
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're comfortable there? It's just like keep it where it's at?
My kids are now 18 and 16, so high school, and you get busy and you're coaching sports and you're doing dad and family and life things. I don't want to go chasing things. They're the easy ones. I would like to buy townhomes in Hamilton County.
I got one for sale if you want one.
Pretty
soon.
Something where it's just hands off, and my cash flow is going to be $200 a month. Then that's okay. It's good school districts. Things are on the rise, and it'll be safe. So, so I own 5, and the nice thing is, like, they're paid off.
That's huge.
But I'm 50. So I talked to someone younger. You can have all my equity if I can be 28 years old again. Like, you can have all my. I'll go back to being 28, right? So the only good thing about being older is that time has worked in my favor, especially with paying extra that they get paid off, and then I'll never see $1 of it, right? It's going to go to my kids. If we're going to do something, we'll buy a family vacation house and which is great. There's another box that's checked for doing that. And then teaching my kids. There's a lot of questions at home. My son's doing entrepreneurship classes. She'll own her own company at some point. What she wants to do, she's very entrepreneurial. So it'll be, how long do I want to sell? And then you don't really retire in this business. You just slow down. But I'd love to, next generation of what do they want to do? Do I want them to sell? Not really. I mean, go do your own thing, make your own path. If they want to sell, that's fine. We'll do that too. But do whatever you like. I always wanted to be a real estate agent too before I even went back. So when I was going back to grad school, the girl I was dating, she was getting her real estate license. So I was helping quiz her, and she was like, "You've gotten every answer right. Why are you going back to do like computer networking?" I don't know, there's big bonuses out there and money, right? I just went for the money.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in class going, this stuff is so boring.
Yeah.
I understood it. I wasn't the best at it, but I understood it. And I kept thinking, I would love to be in real estate class right now. So I thought about that for the full year during that grad school year. And then I went back to work for the guy, right? And then the opportunity came, like, I'm gonna go get my license.